A great life isn't on the other side of the circumstances or the environments that you're in. It's on the other side of the character and the kind of person that you can become. It's not a question of what, it's who. So this is really the story of my life and how I got here to this point. I look back at photos and I genuinely don't recognize myself on what would be 6 years ago. I think that's a great place to start. So something came to my awareness. It was a lot about what I've learned throughout this whole process. Because honestly, they're different people, but I can tell you one thing. I live with all of my days, and that's something a lot of people don't do now. They just experience whatever they experience and they disregard all of what they were and how valuable that is. Although not pretty, it's not, but it's you. And that's where you have to start, especially if you want to start creating progress. So I'll start when I was 18. The first serious girlfriend I had. I guess that's the first thing that woke me up, realizing that you can get cheated on a lot. There were so many stories, but I really don't want to get into the specifics more than I want to get into there are things that you can do right now that you can start doing for yourself that will not only allow you to tap into a feeling of power, but you'll start seeing the beauty in life that I really live to show other people because of how damn great it is. It's a life where you're not living in the face of circumstance you can't change, but perhaps in front of the most existential cosmic relationship between ourselves and a higher power. And we're constantly learning relative to it because of who we are. So we're crucial. We are crucial. So I look back at these photos and I realize the kind of guy I was when I was 18. Well, to give you a head start, I was tall and my older brother always told me to go hit the gym. And so that's what we did. The things that kept me rooted in reality. I'd go out of my way to make sure I take care of my body. And that was something I always did because no matter how insane I became, at least I looked good. And so that's a great place to start. I really had no answers. At 18, I dropped out of college and I graduated high school at 16. I dropped out. At around 17, I just partied every day. And what I did is I worked as a trainer. So all I would do is have my job, pay the bills that I had to pay, and then just go out and party. That was exactly what my life was about. It was about hanging out with the friends that would tolerate me. It was about interacting with people that never would have expected anything out of me other than, hey, stay away from my sister. I was somebody who, although I went out all the time and I did experience speaking to people, I never really felt confident. I had this ability to perform for people, and it was great because my whole life I would act. So I became a great actor, but not a very real person. But when you're 18 and you're younger, you really don't think about how you want your life to be. You just kind of expect it to work out in your favor. And there's not a lot of guidance going on, and nobody really understands the situation. I was somebody who had serious social anxiety, although people would never guess that about me. I would resort to alcohol because that would make me feel some sort of confidence when there was literally nothing there. And I would never get over a 7. I wanted to get a 10, but I'd always tell myself I was at a 10 when I was drunk, but that was a lie, and I knew that myself. There was a relationship I was in, because there's a series of relationships, and I think that they all opened me up to something, which a lot of people don't do. They don't look at their pain, they don't look at their trauma, they don't look at the things in their life that have shaped them, and they don't have a personal relationship with them, and they just often let pain drive them, and anger. When really there's something more to that. Yes, the pain will drive you, and the anger will shape you, but really who you're becoming is going to be there. That's where you are. So of course you meet a girl because you're going to meet a girl one day if you go to enough parties, but she was none of the things that I expected. I never asked her any serious questions, and I dated her because she was the only option. And that's most people's relationships, is that they're not actually with somebody they desire. They're with somebody that tolerates them just like their friends. And you tolerate them, but I guess you're waiting for something to happen, for emotions to pick up, and for something to exist. And you guys do the things that everybody is supposed to do, but there's no fulfillment. So over the years, of course, that relationship goes to and I find myself realizing, like, oh my God, wow, she was cheating on me the whole time. A lot of people are unaware of that. So there was this naivete that I functioned with. The next step in my life was to realize that if I can't find the part of me that is an animalistic son of a bitch, then that will forever be mistreated. The part of me that is perhaps what most men think is they're nice, when, yeah, I was nice then. So I said, let's not do that anymore. The way that I'd experience my life is through snowboarding, surfing, going out, and working out. And I'd do that till about 2 a.m. in the morning. I'd take my photos at a fitness business at the time, and that's what I would do. But I realized something. I became somebody who was unconditional with life. Although still dealing with the underlying insecurities of talking to people and interacting with life, I felt alive. And there was something beautiful about that point in my life. And it was a point in my life that I did disregard as I got older. And this is the thing that a lot of people do. There was a point in time to where you were walking the walk. And I remember that time, and that's when I was. A year goes by, I guess, of starting doing things that are just completely and totally animalistic. Finding myself at raves, twerking on girls, dancing with them. It didn't really matter. It was all about social dominance. Everything was about power. Even my physique was about power. It was about seeing what I could do as a 19-year-old. And these are all really good things that require a lot of ambition, but no fulfillment. Back then, I didn't really judge myself because I actually appreciated that I did those things for myself because I was unconscious. Not until I had this relationship. And that's when I just turned 20. Of course, the 2-0 can scare a lot of teenagers and a lot of people who are growing up. You start to feel old the second you start to turn 20, which is bullshit. I'm 24 now. And the oldest I've ever been was 22, or I would even say 21. I remember that was like, I turned into fossil fuels. A few months after I turned 20, I met this girl, and it was probably the most lonely part of my life. There was no lonelier person I could ever imagine, and genuinely I attracted a person that was just as lonely as me. Well, how did I know? She agreed to the most ridiculous terms and conditions to somebody who didn't even know what he wanted. That's not a good idea. You're probably not with somebody who sees you. You're with somebody who just has no choice. So around 20 years old, I was probably the most lonely I've ever been. I lost all my clients. I couldn't relate to anybody. I couldn't engage with conflict or confrontation. There was my way of life, and I was completely and totally inaccessible. I was rigid as can get. And of course, the salvation would be a girlfriend. You know, that's what everybody thinks will free them until they have a girlfriend. That's not what they thought. So of course, I meet her at a party, give her a nice little twirl and perform for her until we both realize that we're both perfectly lonely for each other. And this is great because I think it's something pure when really it's not. It's two people manipulating each other so that they can meet these needs that are so deeply repressed and that were so impossible to see. That what made me so lonely is realizing I didn't feel like I had a chance as myself. And I didn't know these things. There was nobody talking about this. Like, you wake up and you have Dennis Prager, you know, like, who's guiding the youth? Like, genuinely, there's a gap. There's the people that somehow did it and own a house, and then there's everybody else who literally grew up with a porn plaque and the ability to interact with anybody's life at the click of a finger. I was born there. I understood what it was like to constantly compete with a virtual medium that I was not a part of. I would see everybody's life except my own. I'd see their highlight and I'm not participating. And so of course you need a relationship because at least that's the thing you could interact with. And of course there's going to be photos of her every 5 seconds. Not a great idea. Although it did feel really beautiful in the beginning that we were able to just kind of dump this into each other, I realized that it wasn't sincere. I have no other choice. I all thought about it. If there was a no at any point, well, I would have lost my shit. So this is the part of me that made me realize that I found a person that was so agreeable that I could make them what I wanted them to be for me. And I'm still unconscious, and I'm still surviving. And that's what most people don't know. They're still surviving. They've never even experienced their life for one day. They don't even know what they want from a partner. They've never even touched love, smelt it, or breathed it in because they themselves are inaccessible. We've gone past this, so to speak, survival when really it's just changed. It's no longer in the fact that you can't go to McDonald's and get a whole dinner. It's that we can't connect. We lost our humanity. And I experienced that in this relationship. I started to slowly compromise a lot of my values. I was Jewish, she wasn't. I also started to realize how manipulative I was when there would be any sort of her way or mine. I would immediately resort to it. And I didn't know these things at the time. But it's a beautiful thing that I was able to realize that. In every single one of us, there is dark nature. And we have to discover that dark nature in order to see who we are. You don't know who you are. I didn't know who I was. And I thought I did, I was capable, I had intellect, but nobody ever talks about authenticity. It's an arbitrary term that's so one-dimensional in Hollywood. You would see it on a poster board, but that's not what this is. It's dark. You're dark. We are. That's what makes us real. It makes us complex. We've been hurt. And I disregarded all of that, but the relationship was my way to interact with it, which is in its own way beautiful. I realized that around 2020, people hid. I got to see people's real faces, that people would stab each other behind their backs, and they would talk and that nobody was real. In fact, all of the people that you thought had a smile, they were just waiting for just one day where they could hold themselves over you, and today is the day. So I realized that. I also realized the kind of person I was. Somebody that ran away from conflict, but I'll tell you something, this shaped me. Oh, it shaped me. I lost all of my clients within a series of 2 hours. Nobody wants to train, put it that way. I pivoted my way around it and was able to understand that a lot of people just needed to feel safe in those environments. There's a level of faith that was required there, but I felt like I was growing up and I could look at my partner and I realized something's missing here. I had a system of values that allowed me to interact with the crisis that my partner didn't have. So I stayed very strong through that. And I started to change as a person. I remember realizing that the relationship was falling to shit. I went from having sex 3 times a day to once a week if I was lucky. And I have porn in between, which is its own crises of sorts. Really, there's so much to get into, but I just want to kind of at least let you understand where the this came from, because I believe it's all within us. And that's the crazy part. And life's begging, and it's knocking at that door. You're just running. I was running. Something I remember is the tone changed. I could breathe in the air. I remember it very vividly. It was about 8 months into the relationship. She would have her own periods of time where she would break down, and I would do everything that I can to be there for that person. And I realized that the best thing that ever happened to me was a serious confrontation with my family and that person and myself. And things started coming up to the surface. I started wanting to spend more time with my family. I started looking to conversations that would irritate me, oddly. And that's another call that you're growing, is that you're looking to things that will ignite you, that will challenge you, so that you can maybe see yourself for a little bit. Maybe you're a piece of shit, but that's good. Maybe you're too emotional. That's good. At least it's real. Because when you saw a whole world that managed to go this far, and then the real came out after the crisis, that made me realize that that still exists today, and we still experience it. And the only way that we're going to be able to set this apart so that our children can live good lives and so that we can have beautiful marriages and that perhaps you can do something that's real and authentic to where you don't have to hold it over everybody else. This is the only way to do it. There was tons of confrontation. There was tons of conflict. But the worst part was the more agreeable she became, the more resentful she was. And that's what really destroyed the relationship, was the resentment. Although I understood that I had to take upon this responsibility, I was ready for it. I was raised by people that instilled values in me, and those values are nowhere to be found in today's society. And I was lucky. I'm one of the very lucky people that was able to make it out alive. Not because I was 6'3" and intelligent, but because I had a good family. I had parents that showed up for me. I had people that instilled values in me, and values that weren't because that's just how they felt was true, but because they believed it themselves and they tried it and they tested it and it showed truth. Relationship's coming to an end about 1 year and 2 months in. I remember it was like the first time I could remember me. I felt real. The occurrences that allowed me to get out of this are the crazy part. I was at a point in my life to where I would have endless conversations with this person and I would feel more and more drained every time. I didn't know how to set boundaries. My confidence was diminishing. My energy was diminishing. Everything was about, how is this going to work? Until eventually there was a line where I said, I'm going to grab my bags, I'm going to leave. Of course, that's when they say all the right things. It's when you walk out, and you have to be wary of that. I then show up. Again, I put my bags back in the house, and I say, okay, let's deal with this tomorrow. Through a series of events, I find myself back at her house due to a phone call that was given to me from somebody that she was talking about that ended up calling me at 2 a.m. in the morning. So I end up driving back to the house. I go to her and I ask her, what is this about? Can you explain this to me? What are you telling other people? I've only showed up 1,000% of this relationship. And of course, there's one word you're going to hear, and it's, I love you, but. Those words don't go well together. And I said, within 10 minutes, I'm going to grab all of my stuff, I'm going to leave, and you will never reach out to me again. I'm going to block you on everything, and this is goodbye, forever. There are things in life that happen to us that wake us up, but you need to be looking for it. And that's something I realized, is that wisdom, like, oh, where do you get it? What book do you read? It's for those who want it. It's for those that are intentional. It's for those that are confrontational. It's for heroes. It's for people that are willing to go out into the darkness to discover things that have never been discovered before. And perhaps maybe we all have it in our hearts, and there's things blocking us from that. But there's a desire for it. And I had that desire for it in the relationship, and I'll tell you why. Because the 21st century ideal is people think that they're going to have a happy life. Most people's marriage is just convenience or insecurity. It's not because they believe in anything bigger. It's not because they love their children. Sure, they do on a primal level, but do they actually care about the things that they're standing up for as a couple? Or are they just doing this to survive? And like I said, they've taken things that are beautiful and you're just still surviving with those beautiful things. And then that eventually deteriorates the things that are beautiful. And then what do we have? We're left to what? Some dude on a screen. It's like we need more, we need each other, and I think even more we need truth. And we need that truth rooted in something bigger than ourselves, and that's gone. But it was like I could feel, I could experience. And of course I walk out. And this is the point in my life where I turned into Matthew McConaughey, because all I was doing in 2020 was watching dating shows and rom-coms, something to feel good during the time of crisis that we all went through. Right after that relationship, something snapped. I had a desire to learn, a desire to read, a desire to speak, a desire to engage with the parts of me I never engaged with. It was like I heard the clock start ticking. And I think everybody has this. You can talk to people. Everyone has a moment where they wake up, where they want more in their life. You know, we're all looking for awakening. We're just looking through it through a phone or through a computer. It's like it's in the life in front of you, and it's through the conversations you're not having. And so I felt like the clock started to tick. I looked at myself, 21 years old, and I knew that what I wanted for my life wasn't going to be easy. I could see things a little bit clearer. I knew what my life amounted to, but I'll tell you one thing. I wasn't lonely anymore. I wasn't lonely. And that's when I realized, wow, most people are signing up for that if they're not paying attention. And I realized I signed up for it, and if I didn't have the family that I had and the people that I had in my life, I would never be here right now. I wouldn't be here. I know where I would be. I can't fathom it, but I could tell you one thing, I don't want to go back. And I live to help other people understand that that's actually people's lives, and that's going to be their future. And I don't want that to exist. I want there to be more for people, because I understand that there's more, and that life isn't relative to other people. It's to yourself. It's personal. It's beautiful. It's eternal. I want more of that, because I know that there would be more good if more people came from that frame. So I had this desire to grow, this desire to read, this desire to write, this desire to speak. Sure, I stuck to the things that I knew. I spent time with my family. I started interacting with everybody. And I took a vow of abstinence because, that sounds like a great idea, especially after a relationship. What I told myself is the next woman I kiss or have sex with will be my wife. I didn't know it at the time, but it was deeply manipulative and probably an expectation on a person that's ridiculous. I guess I got to define what that means. As I start 1 month, 2 months, 3 months go by, I start realizing how much fear I'm experiencing. I didn't feel real anymore because I woke up and I saw what I could do with my life. I saw who I could become. Oh, and I ran. And it was in the first 3 months of it I realized I could have quickly integrated this. But I took the fear route. I made the left turn and I kept going down. And it was the turn of avoidance, lack of confrontation, comfort, waiting. Ooh, that's a dangerous one. You don't play the waiting game. Big difference between waiting and patience. And I'm going down that route. I'm just taking upon more clients. I want to work from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. This is the time of my life where I became the most depressed. It was because I confronted the least about myself and the things that I went through. I didn't want to deal with it. I wanted to survive. But this time, I couldn't run because I was conscious. That's the crazy part. Because I was conscious, I couldn't run. Beforehand, when I was younger, I could have kept doing it. I didn't know any better. Now I knew better. So this time it stung and it burnt. From 6 a.m., I trained people to 11 p.m. And I'd look at my account and I'd go, whoopee-doo, look at me. 10K up this month, whatever it was. That would be my metric of progress. As I would look up to God with a series of expectations, waiting for him to liberate me, because my God, I was miserable. It went from 1 cup of coffee to 2 cups of coffees, to 3 cups of coffee, to 6, because that's what I needed to get through the day. I started to have less and less energy. I started to get a disease on my skin that was pretty much covering my whole body. I started to lose my hair, and I started to get older rapidly. And I thought about this for a second. I could have victimized, and I could have went under an umbrella of other people's delusions about how the world is. But there's fight. And genuinely, there's God's kindness, and I was able to experience that because I wanted it. And it doesn't look so sweet when you get it. So I was going through this point in my life, and I had this voice, still small voice, when I woke up this one morning. And it asked me, are you a good person? I went pale. I remember training my clients that day. I was not connected at all, and they saw that. They were worried if I got sick or something. I'm looking for answers. I'm losing my mind. I haven't said a word to anybody. All I knew is that I woke up, and that I heard something true for the first time. I couldn't answer that question, am I a good person? But you know the answer that I did have? You're not a bad one. It was crazy how my brain went to saying, I give charity. And I was like, if that's what you need to say to yourself, you're probably living your life poorly. A few weeks later, I meet a friend. Well, I didn't know that he'd be my best friend. He's sitting in my backyard, smoking a joint. And he looks at me, and the first thing he tells me is, your tiger's locked in a cage. Probably the most impactful line I ever heard in my whole life, because I was having nightmares about a tiger trying to get out of a cage. And when it did, it would kill everybody in my family. It seems to me like this was an opportunity for my growth to finally go, who am I? I believe everybody has that. And by the way, if you're watching this, you probably are looking for it. It's just presenting itself in a different way than you could imagine. And it's deeply personal. And perhaps you should listen. And you should bring these emotions closer. You should bring them out. And then you'll be guided. The next thing he tells me is, you're either dumb as or you lie to yourself every day. In this moment, I wanted to knock his jaw off and tell him what kind of person I was and how much I've achieved. But really, that was all delusion and ego. I had to sit down and listen. When I sat down and I listened, I couldn't believe what this person was doing to me. Because for the first time in my life, I received help. I didn't just have the friends that would tolerate me and would go through the motions with me and would do the things that we did every weekend or every call that we would have every other day. This was somebody who said, there's more to you, bring it out. And that was before I even became friends with him. That is a person that till this day still supports me in everything that I do. Somebody that I'm eternally grateful for, because he was the first person to do what nobody is doing now. Call people out on their and perhaps help others address the greatness within them, because that's really what we're here to reveal. A series of weeks later, all of my friends tell me they don't like that one guy. And I'm like, whoa, gentlemen. I think that's the only person that ever told me anything real about myself. I'm gonna keep listening. A series of months later, all of the childhood friends that I grew up with, I am no longer friends with. There were so many shifts in my life. I started to feel more alive. There was a lot of my dark nature that was being repressed through this, and that's why it was coming out in the form of an animal. And it started to show up in my dreams. It started to make me look into more of the psychology that I've studied my whole life. I started to practice a lot more of these things. My life didn't feel so much like a day-to-day. It felt more like a journey, an investigation of myself, because there's so much to discover, and I'm still on that journey, and I will continue to discover day to day, every day of my life. I didn't know what's going on. There was a part of me that's never been addressed. And then, of course, the most important part of everybody's journey, integration. The parts of you that used to exist. And I remember how I used to live as a 19-year-old animal, even as a party boy. That was gone now. Of course, why was it gone? Because every single solution I've ever come up with was safe. It was never real. And I was Matthew McConaughey, the self-help guru, who of course just did it for free because he's so virtuous at the time. No, I was fake. I was avoiding parts of myself that were scaring the absolute shit out of me. That vow of abstinence was not an actual vow so that I could connect to something that was real. It was so that I could run away from a part of myself. And that was directly related to the amount of depression and anxiety I was experiencing in social environments. Because every time anything sexually related came in, anxiety, run. I didn't want to interact with it. My brother ends up getting married. He gets married to this girl that you probably shouldn't have got married to. Imagine 2 weeks later, your brother gets married to a girl that you know nothing about. But all you know is that he's probably settling for less. This is when I realized that I had to unleash myself. And this is truly when the journey started. I'm sitting there with my friends at the after party of the wedding. And I told them, I said, I can't live like this anymore. This vow is so that I can leave an expectation on God. It's so that I can place these endless list of conditions on a partner. I'm afraid of the part of myself that I've hidden for years. The part of myself that I left 3 years ago. The part of myself that I was an animal. And it's coming out now. But now, I know where to direct it. And I no longer want to run. I want to see what I'm made of. I'm done running at 4 cylinders. I might have to go all 12. And hey, I may hurt others while doing this. And this is the process of my life where I had to start integrating my shadow. All the parts of me that had needs, dark needs, that I wouldn't address. And I would live with this mask that allowed other people to interact with me without running. Because my God, if you were real, people would run. And that's what most people don't understand. And that's when you're doing something right. It's when you're polarizing. People run to you and away from you. And that's how it's gonna be, because it's the only way it'll ever work. Few people that love you, or many that like you, as none ever love you. During the wedding, I annulled the vow. I find myself with one of the girls at the wedding. And this time was the point of my life where I realized I was coming closer to my child. The next part of discovery that a lot of people never access. It's their child. The parts of you that is able to play with life. It doesn't question status. It's living. It's being. It's effortless. It's authentic. It's pure. There was a friend at the time that I met that was somebody to this day I respect. Because he was somebody that was able to live with the purity of a child. And it was the part of me that I always ran away from. It's the purest, most authentic part of me. It's the part of me that is effortless. So I went from training about 20 people to training 4. I told them, I said, let's go out every night. Let's do everything that we can to bring the best out in each other, because that's all I want to see. I don't want to live with conditions anymore. I was 22 at the time, and I realized I let that tiger out of the cage. The last place I wanted to be is living a life with conditions. The most valuable lesson I ever learned was that if you want to be unleashed, you need to know what you're unleashing in its purity and its capacity, along with its darkness. We go out every night. After that, we'd grab a dinner, and I'd pay for it. It'd be steaks or whatever it was. And then we'd go back to the gym. We'd turn on the Xbox, and we'd play Halo 2. Literally my favorite game that has quite shaped me to be the man that I am today in a lot of ways. I went from making 20 grand a month to making 2 grand a month, just enough to pay for the dinners and whatever it was that I had to pay for at the time. When we went out, we didn't just go out to show others who we were. We went out to play. I didn't care. I wore suits when I went out, the one thing that I was so afraid of wearing, and he'd wear them with me. We'd wear colored lenses like Robert Downey Jr., and we'd eat ice cream at 3 a.m. in the morning. Have to wake up at 6 for a client, wherever it was. But I'll tell you one thing. I didn't tell myself I was old. The only thing that made me feel old was the things that I told myself I couldn't do. The things I couldn't express because now I'm getting older. The people that I spent time with that were challenged by the behavior because the behavior made them feel free. And freedom is dangerous. So for the first time in my life, I removed all conditions. And it was the best time of my life. That guy not only lost 40 pounds, shifted his paradigm from suicidal to being somebody who's now thriving. Went from closing 2 deals to 8 deals. I realized what a person without conditions can do for others. So they can help others live free too. Most of us are burdened by who we are. I think it's a narrative that's keeping you trapped. It's not. It's you. It's all the things you tell yourself you cannot be because you're not A, B, or C. How about you try it out for starters? Put on the suit. Play the character. Release yourself. And allow yourself to experience life. Allow yourself. Most people don't. They got work in the morning. All the things they want to do, well, there's a condition on top of their own behavior. So the things that they want to do are just there for conversation. And their life is really just them as a slave. So I refused that. I said I'd rather go broke. I didn't tell myself no when I saw a pretty girl, I'd speak to her. I didn't tell myself no when there was a music festival that I wanted to go to, I went. And I didn't tell myself this time that I was waiting. I wasn't waiting, I was living. Not even a couple weeks after making this decision, I met a person who was quite literally the manifestation of my shadow. She was all of the things that would scare the shit out of you if you were somebody that wasn't trying to discover more about themselves. She was covered in tattoos, couldn't bring her home for Shabbat, put it that way. But I didn't care, I accepted her. I found out everything about her within the first 15 minutes of our interaction. I asked her body count, I asked her relationship with her father, her mother, I asked her past relationships and what she thinks about her ex-boyfriends. I asked her how she wanted to raise her children. You might think that's a little intense. I don't think it's intense. I think it's more intense to manipulate people when you think you know something about them, but really you just fell in love with their idealization of them, not who they are. So for 4 months straight, I spent every hour that I could with these people, with my friend, who was like Peter Pan, and with this girl. In the midst of this, I realized something happened. When you guys find peace, you find purpose. I found peace within myself. I no longer told myself who I needed to be. I stepped away from all of the conditions that everyone had, and I started inviting other people to a life that was worth living. It inspired others. And I realized how it helped others and how it helped me. I didn't tell people I would train people. I wore a suit and I told them that I coach people. Some people would laugh and scoff. Other people would challenge me. And then I got really good at getting challenged because I no longer ran away from that because I knew 2 years ago, I don't want to go back. I started living. I fell in love. And in that moment, I realized, oh, I know what I need to do. I need to continue doing this. I need to take this to the next level. I need a partner that's going to support me. I need a friend that's going to challenge me. Perhaps maybe playtime's over. Now it's time to elevate that playtime into creating something for everyone around you, for yourself. And so I was with the girl and I told her the things that I needed in my life, the family that I wanted to build, the things that I wanted to do here that I'm actually doing today. I was inspired by these people to be here. I lived so freely that I attracted people of tremendous beauty and tremendous grace. And I realized that it wasn't so much about the money I had in my account or how old I was, it was the behavior that I embodied. The behavior I embodied was honest. It was free. It had no conditions. It was truthful. It was authentic. I tell her all the things that I wanted, and of course she got afraid. She's like, why not? Let's just keep doing this. We don't really need to go anywhere. Let's just keep floating. And I said, like, I know where to go. I don't want to keep floating. I want to build. Then of course she was like, what does that mean? Does that mean that you're going to leave? And I said, yeah. And then of course, that's when she was ready to be all the things that I asked her to be. And I said, no, I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. I loved you the way that you are. For respect for what we shared, it's goodbye. I don't want you to change. I'm just discovering parts of myself, and people are forgetting that. When you change, you will hurt others. It's an illusion that you think that you won't, because you'll realize how damn capable you are. But you also have to be willing to accept how many people you will help when you unleash. That's a trade that you're going to have to make, and a risk that you're going to have to take. That was the day my purpose was set. It was the day that I found peace. And I can tell you one thing. An eternal covenant is the best way to describe it. Every day for the last year and a half, I've been working towards that vision, building that message so that I can spread it for the world, to wake everyone up to the experience that we're all living and experiencing. It's not the virtual one. It's not the one of dopamine and giggles and fun. It's the one of meaning and purpose. And there's adventure there. And that's what we all want. That's what we all desire. And that's what I want to see wake up in the world around us. Now, the day where I am now, I realize that I continue doing those things, to live as a person who's unleashed, not giving themselves any conditions, not telling themselves they can't, accepting that there will be massive obstacles along the way. But this time, I'm willing to interact with it no matter what it brings, because I will show up 100%, and so should you.